Hello and welcome to Global Business. I am Imewere. Last week, we talked about the Nigerian oil and gas sector, the Nigerian electrical sector, or as the electricity sector, and all that is happening in that environment. And it was a mind-blowing interview. Conversations with someone. I'm sure you all want to hear the second part this week. The conversation goes on this week with a complete package. Today, we'll continue with Professor OMOWUNMI ILLEDARE, and he'll be discussing fuel subsidy removal issue and also the Nigerian Petroleum Industry Act. A whole lot is happening there, and we know that you want to know what's happening. We've got someone with a vast experience in oil and gas sector, and if you watched last week's edition, you will agree with me. So, sit back, relax for today's edition. But peradventure you missed last week's edition, let's just go to our YouTube channel. It's at Global Business Nigeria. At Global Business Nigeria. Let's now join Victor Anigo-Nomsu as he brings you business trends.
The International Monetary Fund says geopolitical concerns might cause Nigeria to lose as much as $10 billion in foreign direct investment and official development assistance inflows. The figure is almost 5% of the country's annual gross domestic product. The IMF added that countries might see higher import costs or possibly lose access to important export markets if geopolitical tensions increase. The Central Bank of Nigeria says an examination of the e-payment infrastructure will start this year. The action is a component of efforts to strengthen the nation's robust payments infrastructure. In response to an increase in fraud and forgeries in the financial industry, the banking sector regulator has put 7,552 customer accounts on bank verification accounts (BVN). According to Jimo, director of the CBN Payment Systems Management Department, who was speaking at a recent conference for financial correspondents and business editors in Cross River State, the CBN must recruit consultants for the audit to do this. Adefuye Adeyemi, deputy director of the CBN's Payment System Management Department, spoke on his behalf and stated that the audit will allow Nigeria to compare its e-payment infrastructure to global best practices. Stakeholders in the petroleum sector have expressed disapproval of the federal government's proposed $800 million palliative for fuel subsidies to be distributed to Nigerians. $800 million have been proposed as part of a palliative meant to ease Nigerian suffering and to be distributed to 10 million homes. Now, according to Professor OMOWUNMI ILLEDARE, borrowing money from transfer payments to prevent social unrest or protest against elimination of the PMS subsidy is unsustainable and only extends the evil day. Now in other news, Britain launches a 400% investigative agency and a ban on cold call marketing financial items, including fake cryptocurrency schemes, as part of a new anti-fraud campaign aimed at better safeguarding the public from fraudsters. The government also says fraud is now the most frequent crime in Britain, costing close to £7 billion annually and harming 1 in 15 people. The new approach is supported by a fresh £30 million public investment, which was cautiously welcomed by a significant customer rights organization. And just to round off business trends for today, Democratic U.S. lawmakers have tasked the U.S. Trade Representative and State Department to remove investor-state dispute resolution clauses from current and upcoming trade agreements and to defend Honduras against a roughly $11 billion claim made against it by a U.S. business. 33 legislators said that investor-state dispute resolution mechanisms in trade agreements constitute a problematic corporate handout that infringes on nations' rights to sovereignty and democracy. All these are contained in a letter to Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Trade Representative Catherine Tai. And that's it on Business Trends. And Victor Anigo-Nomsu.
Thank you, Victor. Victor talked about the fuel subsidy removal issue and the $800 million palliatives to be given to 10 million households in Nigeria. Now, you know that the Nigerian government has suspended the removal of fuel subsidy for this administration. Well, we will know what the next administration will do. The federal government's proposed $800 million fuel subsidy palliative is expected to be shared amongst 40 million households with the Nigeria. That's drawn from all across the country. And this has created a lot of, people are criticizing it. Drawn criticism from stakeholders in the petroleum industry. Interesting, isn't it? One of the interviews we had some time ago with Eze Onyekpere, that's the executive director of the Center for Social Justice and a public affairs analyst, he talked about this palliative. Let's take a look at what he said then.
President Muhammadu Buhari cannot be talking about removing fuel subsidy because he made a budget for fuel subsidy for the first 6 months in the year. He's leaving on May 29 and the subsidy gets up to end of June. So whether he's designing any palliatives or not, he has so much food dragged on it. He has no such intention. So that will be one of the first assignments that will confront whoever is sworn in to replace him. So I don't want to be discussing fuel subsidy in the light of whatever Buhari or any of his ministers have said, because the political will to do so is not there. So it is left for the next administration to come, and a good number of us are in support of the removal of the proverbial fuel subsidy.
Everyone has their different views about the issue of fuel subsidy palliative in Nigeria. I believe some households are already expecting their own 5,000 naira monthly. We have some stakeholders disagreeing. Well, in all, Nigerians hope for the best. Moving on now, let's join Rachel on the streets, where she'll be speaking with Nigerians about a topic that seems to be making the rounds in Nigeria today. The new Naira notes. Yes, the new notes. Where are they? That's the question Nigerians are asking. You recall that before the general election, there were speculations that the new notes would disappear after the elections. We went to the streets to speak with Nigerians during the cash crunch, and some people said the new notes will be no more after the elections. Someone actually said that the introduction of the new notes was political. In fact, today, just today, the Central Bank of Nigeria was besieged by a crowd who are asking for the head of the CBN governor. They said he must resign because they said he has caused untold hardship on Nigerians with the introduction of the new notes. Well, Rachel is on the streets and she'll be asking Nigerians about how much of the new notes they have, or they have seen, or they have touched in the last few weeks. Rachel, now tell us, what's happening on the streets? I see you're all red and white and all that. So what's happening on the streets? How much of the new notes have you seen today?
Thank you, Imewere. Like you said earlier, there were speculations that the new notes may disappear after the elections. Whether or not this is true, we do not know. But we know that the new notes are now scarce. People hardly see the new notes these days. Let's get the views of Nigerians on this issue.
I have old note more than new notes because there's no new notes. I can't see that because I used to collect money from POS for ATM. The money that I used to collect in ATM is old notes. There's no new notes.
Most important is the new note self. I don't used to have it. Before I have it, it will take maybe weeks before I have it, because normal if we went to POS, after we run the money, they will give us old money. If we request for the new money, they say there's no new money. That's my own opinion. If I have the new money, I will keep it now.
Why?
Because maybe if I use it now, if I have the old one before this December now, that money now will be useless to me. So I have to keep the new one. So to prepare before
The
deadline.
I can't think say they want change the money, but I can't see the new money can't disappear. They ask wetin happen, but nobody answer me that question. Maybe they don't banish the new one or they don't banish the old one. I don't understand which one they don't banish me.
It looks like some people are holding the new notes in preparation for the December deadline on the use of the old notes. How about you? When last did you see or touch them? Or are you holding them? Well, you can send your comments to the numbers on the screen. Before we join Imewere in the studio, let's unveil our business celeb of the week. What motivated you? What inspired you into this kind of job?
Wow. The motivation, like, if anybody had told me I was going to be a painter today, I would say no. This whole thing started like a year ago. I was on leave. So my friend, who is an engineer, had a site somewhere at News Engineering. So I followed him to the site. He does stamp concrete. So when I went to the site, I saw guys working on the site. Everybody was here. You know how it works on the site. So I just sat there. So a lady walked in and she was being hailed, man, 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 man. Oh, and I was like, she brought food for the guys. They were so excited when they saw her. So immediately I asked who she was, and they said she was an engineer on site. And I was like, okay, a lady doing this, that she does painting. I was so motivated. She was so beautiful, so like, and she came with her ride, very clean ride. So I now asked, my friend already introduced her to me and told her this is what I do. I was working with the bank then.
You were working with the bank?
Yes.
So you were a banker, and then you
Yes.
switched into painting and screeding?
Of course I did. So I now met her and told her I wanted to learn under her. She smiled and said I was not fit, like I can't do it. She was doubting. And I told her I can. I was really motivated with the way I saw her do this. Like, I've never seen a female painter. So she kept doubting until I was at the site till evening, persuading her to take me. She said so I should bring some amount of money to learn. I told her so. I didn't have what she said I should pay, and I told her this is what I have at hand, so I would start the next day.
Okay, so as someone who was working in the bank and then now switched into painting, I know that these two environments are different, totally.
Yeah.
Now, how has the business been for you? How has it been being a painter, especially being a female painter?
It's not been easy anyway. For somebody like me, I was a marketer in the bank. So I always have my way around people, men especially. It's not been easy. Like walking from site to site, sourcing for contracts and all. And with the way I am, most people doubt me when I tell them I paint, till they watch me do it, maybe see my videos or my pictures. Some others give me a small work to do so they could see if I truly can do this. But God has been helping me.
So if you have people doubting you, how do you get your customers and how do you try to convince them?
Okay, like I've gone to a site in River Park where I met an Igbo man. It was a very big site. When I told him, I'm always working with my friend that does stamp concrete, so he knows most of these people. I met him and the Igbo man, and I told him he's the owner of the building. I was lucky to meet him. I told the man that this is what I'm into. After my friend spoke to him about his work and all, because he was the one doing the stamp concrete for him on the building. And I told him, sir, this is what I do. I can do the finishing for you. He laughed so loud and asked me, how can I do it? I said, sir, I climbed the scaffold too. It was like everybody decided, they started laughing at me, and I was like, really? That was how luckily there was a site around there. I now went there. I told him if he could please come watch me a little. He actually followed me. I told the guys just let me help them a little. And I did little paintings. And when he saw it, he was really marveled. And that was how I got that job.
So far, have you had any regrets?
The challenge is, okay, for a woman, you know our men, not all of them. Most men, nothing goes for nothing. That's how it works. I would have been more fair if most men would be fair and give out the contract to me as a woman or me as someone who can do this perfectly. But no, they would want to have their ways. You know what I mean?
So with all those challenges, would you want to continue doing this job even, maybe in the future? Would you want to continue build on this be big on this, or you would want to leave this job for another thing, like go back into your banking job or go into something better? Do you see yourself going into another job in the future?
For now, I say no. For now, I say no. Why? Because I've actually worked in so many organizations. But for somewhere like this on the site, if God sees you through here, if I'm awarded a big contract, that's my breakthrough.
There are people, especially young people, let's even talk about ladies who, they're already inspired, just listening to you. They're inspired and they want to do this kind of job. But again, they are thinking, if I go into painting as a woman, what will people say? If I go into painting, the challenges that comes with it, what do you have to say to this kind of people out there?
Okay, for a woman, like I've had so many ladies in my DM wanting to learn under me. I wouldn't want to bring this out for now, but I have my plans towards ladies specifically. I think I'll start from my state. Towards Easter period, I did made some posts in like 2 or 3 groups in my state. I want this little thing. I see it little now because it has not gotten to where I would want it to. I want this. I want to set this up as a company, and then bring in girls.
Thank you, Rachel. Tokwase, keep doing what you're doing and continue to excel. Like I said earlier, we'll continue our last week's episode as we couldn't exhaust the interview last week. We have Professor Illedare OMOWUNMI. He has over 40 years of experience in the oil and gas sector. He's an expert in upstream petroleum economics and policy, international petroleum and fiscal systems economics, and geopolitics and economics of oil and gas resources and supply. All that is to say that this man knows what he's saying. Let me talk about gas now. You've talked about electricity, oil. Now let's look at gas. Gas, the Nigerian government, still this government, not too long ago, declared this decade as a decade of gas. And they said that we would begin to maximize the input of gas even to the economy and also to the GDP. But we find that there's been more rhetorics than action. Gas is still flaring in the Niger Delta and so many opportunities are wasted. What is the way forward for the gas industry?
We are doing better than before. And we must never underestimate a marginal benefit. We can expand and accelerate it. And it's not that we do not have the framework to make gas the cornerstone of our economy. Of course, not the way oil is. The oil that we have explored and exploited has been geared towards revenue earnings. We must not develop gas with that perspective in mind. And in 2016 or 2017, there was a natural gas policy that was gazetted by the federal government. We must learn to build on a good foundation laid by a precedent, a predecessor. And that is what has a little bit limited the ability of gas to, if we had continued along the line of that policy document and not become distracted with auto gas and what we have here and there, perhaps we will have seen the impact a lot more. With respect to flaring, we have not eliminated it completely, but we don't rank high among the countries that are flaring gas the way we used to. So there are some commendations, and there are some investments with respect to moving gas. One of the limitations of gas is transportability. And most of the time, they exist where the market is not fully developed. And you need to move them to the market. And you have to transport them. And transportation is expensive. And those are some of the limitations with respect to getting it expanded as quickly as we would have loved to. But we are moving in that direction. In fact, Nigeria then has become fortunate that natural gas is an accepted transition fuel, which actually helps us to be able to actually lower the greenhouse emission, green gas emission. Well, we're fortunate we're not even emitting more. The entire Africa is emitting less than 3% in a cumulative sense of the total global emission. So if we have a transformational leader who then has a perspective of the future much more being important than the tendency to just look at now, we begin to find a way to bring those industry to us to use our gas. Because we actually have low cost of living, low energy cost per unit. And some of the insecurity that we have is because of lack of employment of the youth. Exactly. So if we are able, with all of this emission, those countries where emission is a problem, let them locate the industry to where the emission is low. And there's no better place to come than Nigeria. We have 600 plus trillion cubic feet of natural gas potential reserves. Of course, there are resources now, but it can easily be translated to reserve with proper investment. We have university education, turning out graduates. We don't have to plead with a student to be in STEM, science, mathematics, engineering, technology. No. Our young people are talented. So we have what we take. What we don't have is a transformational leadership mindset. And it's because of oil money. So gas is a bride.
I apologize if I may take you back. We talked about refineries and you talked about the fuel subsidy removal and all. It doesn't remove the fact that Nigeria has to produce its own petroleum, its own petrol. And it brings me to the point of modular refineries. Do you support modular refineries? This government had said that they were given licenses. In fact, they gave licenses, and yet we haven't seen them come on board, the modular refineries. I know the vice president was trying to anchor it at some point in time, but these modular refineries haven't come on board. And you ask yourself, do you think that modular refineries would help Nigeria produce its fuel or petrol?
Listen, I'm not opposed to modular refinery. In fact, when we were in Port Harcourt, in the University of Port Harcourt in 2013, 2015, one of the advocates of modular refinery was Dr. Igwe. It is part of what I see in Nigeria, and I'm going to answer your question. We must begin to really admire our intellectuals. The advocacy of modular refinery started with him. In fact, we have a prototype modular refinery in the Center for Gas and Petroleum Refinery Institute, in the University of Port Harcourt. But the man somehow left abruptly. Just the way the same day I left University of Port Harcourt abruptly. because of this transactional leadership mindset. And the former vice chancellor brought almost how many professors from abroad? And we almost all left after him. The modular refinery is a good way to start. And then as you make money, you expand and expand and expand, and it becomes a big refinery. So it's a very good concept. But who are you giving the license to? And that's what I told my friends in Ghana. Local content is not about making millionaires. Local content is about creating a domestic multiplier effect on your natural resources. We have not done that. Have not done that. So if you give modular refinery, and I was talking to a friend of mine who's chairman of one of those who got a license, and they have a marginal field. And I was talking about what he plans to do with the license that they have for a modular refinery. When you have such people with transformational leadership mindset, and they have a license that can create multiplier effect in the economy, it is good. Since 1976, nobody has built a new refinery in the United States. Yet, the capacity to refine petroleum product has not diminished. That is and it's not as complex and not as expensive as the type that Dangote is building. Look at how long. For a modular, it's not going to take that long. As long as you are focused and continue to know where you are going, it's a good concept.
And that's it on Global Business for today. Please join us again next week. You can follow us on YouTube at Global Business Nigeria so as not to miss any of our programs. From me and the crew members, we say thank you for watching. And remember, I am Imewere Ohiomokai. It's always nice doing business with you.